You know that one relative who's 60 and still hikes, still lifts something heavy, still bounces back from a bad night's sleep faster than you do at 34? Meanwhile, you tweak your back reaching for a coffee mug, or you're winded after one flight of stairs, or your knees ache for no reason you can point to. So what's actually going on here? Does the body just automatically get more fragile every year, or is something else deciding that for you? Turns out there's a hidden repair system inside your cells that either gets switched on or left dormant depending on one specific thing you're doing or avoiding. So the real question isn't whether your body will decline with age, it's whether your body can actually become more resilient the older it gets. We like to think aging is a one-way slide, a slow leak you can't patch. But if that were the whole truth, that 60-year-old wouldn't exist. So maybe the real question isn't how old your body is, it's what your body has, or hasn't, been asked to handle lately. Here's what's actually happening inside your cells. There's a repair system in there, and it doesn't run on a timer, and it doesn't run automatically just because you're breathing and aging. It runs on a trigger. Something mild has to disrupt the body, just enough for it to notice, just enough for it to go on alert. That disruption could be physical exertion, a shift in temperature, or even a short window without food. Small, manageable, survivable disruptions, not disasters, just enough of a nudge that the body sits up and pays attention. Here's the first thing that happens when that trigger goes off, and it's almost the opposite of what you'd expect. At a microscopic level, the response is fast, and it's a little bit rough. Tissue takes on tiny, controlled damage. Muscle fibers, for example, actually develop small tears when you push them harder than they're used to. That sounds bad. It sounds like exactly the kind of thing that would make a body more fragile, not less. But the tearing itself isn't the point. The point is what happens right after. The body detects that damage almost instantly and flags it for repair. It's less like an injury and more like a signal flare going up, telling the whole system, reinforcements needed here. Once that signal fires, a second, slower process takes over. This one unfolds over hours and sometimes days, and it's where the real transformation happens. The body doesn't just patch the tiny tears back to how they were before. It overbuilds. It lays down more than what was there originally, so the tissue comes back denser, sturdier, more capable of handling that same stress next time without tearing at all. This is why a muscle that gets mildly overworked one day can come back stronger than its starting point. The temporary damage was the instruction. The rebuilding afterward was the upgrade. And this loop isn't limited to muscle. It shows up in other forms of mild stress too. And once you see the pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. Brief cold exposure, the kind that makes you gasp for a few seconds, nudges your blood vessels and your metabolism to get better at regulating themselves. Your circulation has to respond quickly, and that quick response is itself a kind of practice round. Short windows without food work a similar angle from a different direction. When the body goes a while without incoming fuel, it activates something like an internal cleanup crew, a process that clears out damaged or worn-down components inside cells so there's more room for healthy, functioning ones. And heat exposure, something as ordinary as a hot shower or a sauna, switches on a class of proteins whose entire job is to protect other proteins from damage, almost like a support crew that shows up specifically when things get warm and stressful. Different doors, same hallway, same repair system waiting on the other side. Why does the body work this way? Why build in a system that needs a bit of hardship to switch on? The answer traces back to the environment your body was originally calibrated for. For most of human history, discomfort wasn't an event, it was the baseline. Physical effort was unavoidable. Temperature swings were constant. Hot days, cold nights. No thermostat smoothing things out. Food wasn't always available on demand. The body evolved inside that reality, and it built its repair and reinforcement systems around the expectation that these mild stressors would show up regularly, almost like scheduled maintenance requests. The system was never designed to run in a world of constant climate control, constant food access, and minimal physical demand. That kind of comfort is new. Historically speaking, it's barely a blink. So what happens when those small challenges disappear almost entirely, which is closer to how a lot of daily life looks now? The repair systems don't just sit quietly on standby, waiting patiently for their next assignment. They go dark, and when they go dark, the body doesn't stay neutral. It shifts modes entirely, moving from a posture of strengthen me into a posture of just protect what's left. That shift is subtle, but it's not harmless. It's part of why sedentary comfort can lead to bone and muscle loss that outpaces what someone's actual chronological age would predict. The body isn't failing because of years past. It's downgrading its own infrastructure because nothing has asked it to reinforce anything in a long time. Now, here's the part that keeps this from turning into an argument for just adding more stress to your life. Piling on non-stop pressure isn't the same as delivering a short, controlled challenge, and mixing those two up is where things go wrong. A brief moment of controlled discomfort, something that starts and then clearly ends, strengthens this repair machinery. But constant, unresolved stress, the kind with no real recovery window in between, wears down that exact same machinery instead of reinforcing it. Picture the difference between a short blast of cold water that lasts 30 seconds and then stops, versus a life where your stress response never fully powers down, day after day, with no gap for repair to actually happen. Same biological system, completely different outcome. One version asks the body to adapt, the other version just asks the body to survive. Here's the part most people miss when they try to apply any of this. The repair system doesn't actually need constant pressure to do its job. In fact, pressure that never lets up is the one thing that jams it. What it actually needs is for the challenge to end. The rebuilding, the reinforcing, the part where tissue comes back denser than it started, that all happens in the window right after the stress stops, not while it's happening. Think of it less like a machine that runs while the stress is on, and more like a construction crew that shows up right after the disruption clears. No clearing, no crew, no stopping, also no crew, because they can't get in while things are still shaking. The stress opens the door. The rest is what lets the work actually begin. So if you're looking for the smallest possible way to open that door today, here's one that fits into something you're already doing, so there's nothing new to schedule and nothing to remember later. Next time you're in the shower, right at the end, switch the water to cold for 20 to 30 seconds. That's it. No ice bath, no elaborate protocol, no gear, just a brief, sharp shift in temperature that your blood vessels and your metabolism have to respond to in real time. Then step out, dry off, and go about your day like normal. No extra effort required after that. The rest happens on its own, in the background, the same way that rebuilding happens quietly after a hard walk or a short stretch without food. And here's the reframe worth sitting with. That tweak in your back, that unexpected shortness of breath on the stairs, that ache in your knee with no clear cause. None of that is proof that your body is falling apart, or that decline is simply locked in. It's not evidence of damage. It's evidence of a system that's been sitting idle. The same cellular machinery that rebuilds muscle, denser after exertion, is still in there, fully intact, just waiting for a reason to turn back on. Discomfort, in this very specific, small, controlled sense, isn't a threat to avoid. It's a signal you're sending on purpose, one your body has been missing. Don't expect a dramatic shift overnight, and don't go looking for one, because that's not how this works, and it's not what's being promised here. What's worth paying attention to instead are the small things. Maybe the stairs feel very slightly less demanding. Maybe getting up off the floor feels a touch steadier than it did last month. Maybe sleep feels a little deeper on a day that included one small controlled discomfort, followed by real rest afterward. These are quiet signals, not headlines. They're the kind of shifts you'd miss if you weren't looking for them, which is exactly why it helps to know they're there to notice in the first place. Go back to that 60-year-old from the very beginning, the one still hiking, still lifting, still bouncing back faster than someone half their age. They didn't get lucky. They didn't inherit some special version of aging that skips fragility. Their bodies simply kept receiving small, safe reasons to rebuild, over and over, probably without them even thinking of it in those terms. A cold rinse at the end of a shower is exactly that kind of reason. Small, safe, over almost as soon as it starts. And followed by nothing more demanding than letting your body do what it already knows how to do, which is repair, reinforce, and come back just slightly more capable than it was the day before.